All right, hey, welcome back, Aggs. We have a lot to talk about tonight. Thanks for joining me to talk about the defensive side of things for the 2022 preview. Last week we did offense, and if you haven't yet, you need to get back over there. You need to watch that because in my opinion, it's very important that you know what's going on over there so you can understand why tonight's talk is extremely important. So I will give you a quick recap of that before we get going, but that's a must watch. Okay, so quick overview. On offense, we've got a battle between Haynes King, Max Johnson, maybe Connor Weekman. We're trying to figure out who's going to take the left tackle and left guard spot. We know centers probably Bryce Foster, Layden Robinson, right guard, and Fothery at right tackle. Anias coming in at wide receiver number 1, Evan Stewart, wide receiver probably number 2. Those were my official picks. And somebody like Preston or Moose or something along those lines taking up wide receiver number 3. A chain, of course, at running back. Probably Amari backing him up. And then maybe we're looking at Jake Johnson, Donovan Green, Garza playing tight end. Okay, so we have a solid-looking offense, extremely solid-looking offense, a lot of potential, and if those pieces come together, we are going to have a lot of firepower right there. But what good is firepower if you can't stop anybody? Okay, so we have what I like to call a glorious mess going on right now with the defense. So we're going to get into that big time deep. It is so hot outside though. Get you a cold drink so that you can sit down and enjoy this. What else are you going to do to beat this heat right now? Okay, and so before we get into it, like and subscribe. Okay, look, it's free. It's the only thing that I can think of right now that's not subject to inflation. Gas goes up, energy goes up, groceries go up. Subscription to Aggie Central stays free. So subscribe. It helps me out. It's the best deal this side of the Brazos, no matter which side you're on. So just do it, okay? Sorry about that, Nike. I'm not trying to steal that. So let's get into this defense, all right? Now, let's start with the knowns, okay? The knowns are that we should be returning Tyreek Chappell, Jalen Jones, Antonio Johnson, Damani Richardson, McKinley Jackson, and Edrin Cooper, okay? So Chappell was a first-year cornerback last year. Jalen Jones, he was in his sophomore campaign. Antonio and Damani were both juniors last year. They're going to be seniors this year. McKinley, he will be in his junior season. And then Cooper, I believe, is somewhere in his sophomore season. So we've got 6 positions out of 11 already basically figured out. There may be some room for some changes, and we're going to discuss that, right? Where I might get some things wrong, where we might have a battle going on, somebody might step up, somebody might take a spot. So we're going to talk about that. But I fully expect Antonio and Damani to be our captain. Okay, Tyreek is going into sophomore year. Jalen just finished his second year. These 2 seniors, it's time for them to step up. McKinley, I think, will be big in the middle on the defensive line, and Cooper's coming along. Fully expect something from him probably next year in the leadership area. Of course, he will be a leader, but the captain of the team, I think, is probably reserved for Damani and Antonio. So I want to start off with probably our strongest area, what I think is probably our strongest area, and I don't know when the last time you will have been able to say this, but it's defensive back. Defensive back. When's the last time our defensive backs have been worth a damn, to be quite frank? When was it Sammy Davis back in early 2000s? That was one of our best corners that we've had. I mean, you've got a couple more coming to me here in a bit, but just thinking about the overall group that we've got this year. Okay, so here's what we're like I said, we're returning Tyreek Chappell, we're returning Jalen Jones on the other side, right? Damani comes back. Antonio Johnson comes back at the nickel position. So the only spot out of that we're losing was Leon O'Neal. All right, so we got 80% coming back. 80%. Now, if you think about these guys, they're all four-star guys except for Jalen Jones, and all fairly high four-star. Jalen Jones was our lone five-star that we've got there. So the big question is really going to be, who is going to replace Leon? And that's where the bulk of our conversation is going to be around for the DBs. I think Tyreek and Jalen are likely to continue to start again, right? So we want to talk about where the battles are going to be, what fall's looking like, what the coach's decisions are going to have to be. Tyreek had a bit of a shoulder situation that's going on. He did not play in spring. I don't believe Jalen played this spring either. I think he's been a bit injury prone this last year too, which would explain a bit of, some of the criticism that came his way for some of his play this last year. Perhaps he was playing through an injury. And Tyreek, I believe, had some surgery in the offseason. So he did not suit out for spring ball. But he played so well. I don't see why there would be a possibility that he would not start next year. And why would Jalen not start? He's got 2 years of experience. Even though maybe we have those criticisms there, he's got 2 years of experience. I mean, who's going to outplay him right now? Not saying it's not possible, but if that's your situation, you really got a leg up, right? You've got a leg up. So we saw some differences between those two. Tyreek really has a lot of tight coverage. He is more physical than he looks. He's willing to make a tackle. He will be right on your hip at all times. He's well versed in where he's got to be and what he's got to do. He wasn't without some of his slip-ups as a freshman. But honestly, if you didn't know he was, you probably wouldn't have thought it, because of the consistency in the play. Something Jimbo's looking for out of every single player that he wants is some of that consistency. You probably didn't have more consistent of a player on the team aside from Antonio Johnson that's coming back. So probably one of our more solid spots is the position that Tyreek will be coming into again this next year. Jalen is, I think, pretty close to being in his money year, if not in it. I mean, if Antonio and Damani are certainly in their money year. This is their last year. They're going to the draft next year. Antonio projects to be high, mid, somewhere in the first round, almost assuredly. So these guys, to be that kind of level of player, you've got to be extremely consistent. You've got to be savvy in the ball, in the film room, and all sorts of stuff, right? So really what that leaves us with is kind of figuring out what Jalen's spot also kind of looks like. He was probably maybe, I mean, we're going to call it like it is here. We're not trying to sugarcoat much, but he was probably the weakest link in the defensive backs last year. And maybe looks to be that way this year, depending on, how the others play. Tyreek in particular, with being the youngest of them all. So what's that going to look like? Is his play going to tighten up? Perhaps maybe they're going to think about moving him. He came in I believe the class of 2020, and he came in as a safety. So his first year was the 2021 season. Excuse me, back that up. So he was class of 2020. First season was the 2020 campaign. So he committed in that February of 2020. He played the 2020 season and the 2021 season. Came in as a safety. He's been playing cornerback, of course. You're a DB. You can play all those. But maybe his more natural position is safety, and maybe that would help out his production for him to get back to some place that he's a little bit more comfortable with. This is interesting. Very interesting thought going on here. Especially interesting when we're thinking about, okay, well, if we're going to replace Leon, who are we going to replace him with, right? So some potential people to replace Damani are Jordan Gilbert, who did play in the spring game. Bryce Anderson came in this last class, highly rated 4-star. Maybe even Smoke Bowie or Killebrew. Those are possibilities. I think Jacoby Matthews is one as well. which also came in this last class. All safeties, right? But all highly rated 4 stars, in which everybody in that class was, right? So what's actually going to work out is going to be a very, very interesting look. What I am going to float out there a little bit, don't hold me to this, right? Maybe, just maybe, it would be extremely interesting if we moved Jalen over to safety, and if we squeezed 5-star Denver Harris over into Jalen's spot. Denver did come in for the spring. He played in the spring game, played fairly well, had 1 PI of note. I think anybody watching that game, though, would call that a very ticky-tack PI. And at first I thought that it might have been Miles Jones that might have done it, who came back, played in the spring game, and maybe he factors into this spot. We got a lot of seniority there. We also got a Brian George that looked promising to some extent as of recent, going back to this last season early on. However, Miles Jones was somebody who had been a little bit more prone to the pass interference as well. He showed us that again in the spring game. Maybe we haven't lost that habit yet, but whenever I saw that PI, I thought, oh, that was Miles Jones that did that, because I was accustomed to him doing that. And then I was like, oh, that was Denver. Oh, man. Didn't expect that out of this guy. He's highly talented guy. Well, then I went back and watched it again, and I was like, that was a PI? Really? Come on now. So after watching that, I really, kind of took a step back, and I was like, I just don't, that really reshaped everything I thought about him playing in that position. So that's a very interesting thought about him taking over that spot. Coverage looks good, film-wise. It's, very close to a Tyreek kind of situation where, he's on your hip all times. He knows how to anticipate your move. He's got good recovery speed, good range. As all these guys are going to have in particular, but of course he's got to step above the rest. That's why he was a 5-star. And if we do that, we'd end up with 2 5-stars in our DB section and 3 other highly rated 4-stars. So this is probably the strongest group we've ever had, the most talent we've ever had in this group. I don't know at any other time, and I would venture anybody to put up, hey, here's a time when we've had more talent at this position. So probably our strongest group right now. I don't want to be proved wrong, but if I am proved wrong, so be it. We do have a few other contenders, to be quite honest. I mean, Bryce Anderson played in the spring game and looked well. He could easily end up in that position. Somebody like again, if we're moving around some positions, perhaps Smoke Bowie might be an interesting thought. I don't think he made it in for spring. I'm pretty sure he's on campus currently. The guy is a two-way player as well. His ball skills are amazing. He is accustomed to going up, high pointing. He knows how to play with his body, and so he knows how to go up and get a ball. I don't know if this is going to be his year, but it's an interesting thought as well, interesting prospect. We're probably looking something like, might recognize a few other names. Bobby Taylor is somebody that could end up making it into the cornerback slot rotation. Guy's bigger than you think. I think he's somewhere in the 6'1" range, high, maybe low 190s, something like that. When we were recruiting him, I thought he was kind of a bit more of a spud kind of situation, but I thought that of Tyreek as well, and his game has been much bigger than what he looks. So I think Bobby Taylor could be an interesting little addition there too. We'll see how some things play out. Somebody like Deuce Harmon, though, probably backing up Antonio at this point. Not sure if he's got what they want to be able to move over. They're more of a grooming situation for him to take over Antonio, say, next year. Got in some action this last year, looked good. I think even had an interception, if I remember correctly. And Jordan Gilbert played in the spring game, started. So he was on, I believe, the first team depth chart at that time. Again, we had some injuries that are going on, so I don't expect that depth chart was 100% accurate. So, again, I don't think I've mentioned one person. Maybe Miles Jones was a 3-star. every one of these folks is a 4-star, 5-star. I mean, they are up there. And I'm looking through this list real quick. Something around 13 players in this group. So we are going to be set at DB for a while. And it's something we've needed for a long while. We've just given up a lot of passing yards in the past. Last year was one of our better years, if memory serves me correct on the stats. But years ago, our run defense was so stout, and we were so worried about whether or not we were going to give up passing yards. We were giving up something like 75% of the opponent's rushing, which is just phenomenal. Sometimes even lower depending on the opponent. We've been wanting to shore up this group for so long, so I'm extremely excited to see what their play is going to be. We've been giving up deep balls on occasion as well, and I'm looking for that to come to a screeching halt. Now, of course, that happy mess really comes up next, because we've had a lot of times when we've had defensive line and no defensive back, or we've had some, maybe a strong defensive back or two, something, maybe in the linebacker range that's helped us solidify that back end a little bit, and then no defensive line. So we've always seemed to have kind of one or the other. We never really have had both. So what we have to do now, what the coaches are going to be tasked with, is finding the defensive line that can approximate something close to last year's production and get it going a little bit early on. As you might remember, we had a couple suspensions early on. McKinley Jackson, Michael Clemens. Didn't hurt us too terribly bad, but thinking about kind of going into that Arkansas game without these guys having played in the first two games really makes me just think what the season could have been, provided we had that as well. Of course, we had needed other things to fall into place offensively for that to work out, but you get the idea. We had issues on both sides of the ball with getting things solidified. And now we've got basically an all-new defensive line coming in. So this is a big task. This may be the largest task that this coaching staff is going to have this year. We do have to pick a QB. That's a really big one as well. We got to figure out the left tackle, left guard to get that offensive line solidified, and that's a huge task too. But we're talking about one spot for QB, 2 spots for offensive line. We're almost talking about 4 spots along the defensive line. Now, I fully expect McKinley Jackson is going to be starting, probably somewhere right guard, nose tackle, something like that. Potentially, it looks like Isaiah Rakes played a lot last year, so it might be thought of that he is going to go over into the left guard position, because he played so much, because he's got so much experience. I mean, he is a quality player. He's a big guy. He's got some get off on him too. Not quite as solidified as McKinley, but man, just a really, really solid guy that played for us last year. If it weren't for what we potentially have coming in, I think I'd say that was going to be the guy. But I think it's more likely, and hear me out on this. This is why it's such a happy flipping mess, because you got so much talent there. You have, we just went over the DB talent. The defensive line talent is pretty much matches the DBs. The reason why I went with the DBs as being a little bit of a stronger group is because there's a little bit more seniority there with Damani and Antonio, and then you've got Jalen's got 2 years under his belt. The offensive line is going to be a bit more green. Hella talent that's going to be there, but it's going to be lack of experience, and we might be saying that throughout the year. The sooner we get that solidified, the stronger this group's going to be. So let's run through some of this, right? So instead of Isaiah Rakes being at left guard, what I'm wondering is this going to be Shimar Turner's breakout season? He is my player to watch for breakout player of the year. I think this guy was chomping at the bit last year. I think he has got a motor like we haven't seen maybe since, we've seen quite a few good motors. So I want to maybe qualify that just a little bit. But thinking of somebody like Myles Garrett. Now he's going to be playing on the inside, not the outside, not the edge, but a motor similar to him, somebody that's just ready to go, somebody that's hungry and thirsty, and he's got all the talent and tools to be able to dominate right there in that left side. So look for him to replace Leal right there. So McKinley replacing Peavy technically, although McKinley played a lot, Isaiah played a lot as well right there, but Leal right there in the left side. Shamar looks like he's, to me, going to end up there. I'll be surprised with the coaches if they don't end up that way, right? So he's got every bit, I think, of Leal in him that we've had so far, and that's extremely good news. Anything coming close to that is going to serve us really well, right? Okay, so let's get out on the edges now. Michael Clemens over here, Tyree Johnson on the right side. Guys played, I don't think I would have thought they were going to play that well going into last season, but they did. I was extremely thankful for it. I thought Michael Clemens might have that shot to do it, and he did it. He did every bit of it. I think Tyree, I think he went undrafted, but I believe he's going to end up making, somebody a fairly quality defensive end. Clemens goes over to the Jets, and this guy is going to be difficult to replace. As soon as I say that, I feel like I'm going to take a step back and I almost say I think we've got somebody ready to go, because Fidel Diggs played so much last year. I would say it was sparing it to some degree, but he got in there quite a bit, and we saw good production from him. I don't think I would have even noted it as a fall off in one way, shape, or another at all. So he filled in extremely well for Clemens whenever he had to come in, and I don't see why it wouldn't be him playing right there, except for, again, the possibility that we may be forced to play somebody that's just so much more talented, or ends up being able to put out more production because of their talent. That's a possibility, and we got a few names we need to get through to go through that. But let's just assume maybe Fidel for a moment on the left side. I'd be interested to see what the coaches are going to work out over there on the left side. On the right side, I'm thinking, and I'm looking particularly at two guys, and they might be just kind of more of a 1-2 punch situation. We might be doing a little bit things on this defensive line by committee to some degree, just because we have so much talent. But we brought in a guy last year I don't think played much of a snap, played in the spring game, looked like he might have been commanding double teams to me, and that's Toon Meese. And I'm extremely excited for this guy. I watched his commitment all the way through, and he's a big guy. He's just south of 300, right where that's about where Clemens was, right? So Fidel is a little bit more of a Tyree Johnson body type, a little on the lighter side, about 270, but Toon Meese is not. So maybe technically he's going to be taking over Clemens, and Fidel might be taking over for Tyree. But then right behind Toon Meese is this new guy that's come in that I thought had been there for 3 years already whenever I watched the spring game. That was Anthony Lucas. And this is a name you're going to want to know, and you will know his name at some point, I guarantee it. I don't know if it's this season or next, or the season after that, but you're going to know it. He's a big guy. He's strong, he's physical, and he is going to play that edge. His impact's going to be noticeable. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to make predictions yet, but I really cannot be going through all those commits from last year. I would have named a certain few others from that group that I was like, wow, I'm really excited about this guy. Chris Marshall, right, wide receiver, Evan Stewart, guys that we needed in positions that we needed extremely bad. We got Walter Nolan in. We haven't even talked about him just yet, right? But like the number 2 recruit in the country, I think number 1 defensive lineman. huge pickup for us, right? But here I am talking about Anthony Lucas. Well, he made it in for spring ball. Walter's coming in or is already there for the summer, and will be there for fall. And I just can't help but gush over Anthony. Well, time will tell. Time will tell where this guy's going to end up playing, but he's going to be in there. And if not him, let's just roll off a few other names real quick, right? And Nia White coming off the edge. Dindy, probably more of an inside guy, like Nolan will be. But you've got Anai. I know I'm forgetting one or two guys here. We also picked up Labius Overton, remember, a reclassification, looking like a 2023 guy and came in 22. Shamar Stewart. Oh my gosh! I just rolling off 3 and 4 star. I'm sorry, 4 and 5 star guys here. So something's assuredly going to work out. You can bet that. With this amount of talent in the room, iron sharpening iron, somebody is going to show through. I feel extremely confident about that. So we're in the neighborhood. Let's see, about 12 to 14 guys, and they are just all ballers. I've talked about Adarius Jones a lot in the past, and I've been very high on him. He got in a little bit last year, especially when Rakes was in. He's a great second string guy. Did a great job, just like Rakes did. It's just going to be difficult for him to get on the field with these people coming in. Like I said, Walter Nolan coming in, and man, I would say man amongst boys, except for he's a man amongst other men. That's how much we have in this room this year. So that has to get figured out, and it will get figured out. These coaches have done a great job. Elijah Robinson, Coach Price, they've proven that they know what to do. And the way they got that defensive line ready last year, thinking about Tyree and Clemens, guys that, a couple years ago just didn't really factor into the equation. And they found a way, and they got them in there, and they were productive, and they're, especially in a Clemens situation, getting drafted now. That's development. That is development. So can they do that with these guys? You bet they can, and they will. We just got to figure out who it's going to be. We don't know. They don't know just yet. They haven't been through fall ball, but I trust them. They'll get it figured out, and they're going to put they're going to put a product out there on the defensive line that's going to be solid. How solid? That's going to be a question. But running Durkin's defense, very similar to Elko's, but got some nuances. They are going to be expected to play very similar, play a lot of assignments that's going on. And of course, this is going to segue us right on into linebackers after this, because if they do their jobs, our linebackers do their jobs, everyone does their jobs. It's a happy football game going on. We'll be fine, right? But it's not so much that it's going to be fine. What I'm trying to put out there is that if they get this line together, there is going to be a real chance that we are going to have an extremely high caliber team here, and one where the offense and defense have got what's needed championship wise. Hesitate to use that word, but the point is not so much that we're guaranteed one. It's just that we are as close to reloading as we have ever been. This is either maybe retool would be the better word for this, since we haven't reloaded ever before. It's maybe difficult to say, oh, okay, we're just going to reload now, right? But you've heard all the people. You know who's going in there. You know these people. They're going to be insert in here one way or the other. We have never gone with so many positions from 4-star right on back to 4-star. and in some cases, upgrades. If we can upgrade at cornerback with Denver Harris, if we can upgrade at left tackle with Toon Meese, defensive, left edge, with him. If we could do the same on the other side with Anthony Lucas, if Walter Nolan's playing in the middle, McKinley Jackson's playing on the other side, or Shimar Turner, a 5-star. I mean, we're talking about Shamar Stewart, 5-star. It's just happening over and over and over again. This is as close to a reload as we've ever had. But we've got to answer some questions. So that's what we're trying to do here. That's what these coaches are going to have to do, is answer some questions. And they're going to knock on a lot of doors, and they're going to figure out who wants to play, who's ready to play. And they're going to have a 2 deep, extremely important as well. We're going to be as deep as we've ever been. And getting this figured out is going to be one of the most glorious things we will have seen if it happens. Okay, I'm really thinking and expecting. I give it a high probability that it will. And when this meshes with that offense as well, we are going to see some fireworks. I really do believe that. I really do. So this maybe gets to a little bit more simplistic spot or position group, the linebackers. We're fairly solidified in this group, at least in one spot, right? I think everybody's expecting Edgerrin Cooper to play. I don't know why anybody would not be expecting Edgerrin Cooper to play, so let's just assume he's going to play. And let's talk about what he does well. So he's a savvy guy. One of his biggest strengths, and it may be stem from how savvy he is that he takes excellent angles. Very rarely does he take an off angle. So he's very reminiscent for me in this range. I mean, also, he's got a different body type. I mean, Buddy Johnson outweighed him probably by 20, 25 pounds. But he's a little bit faster than Buddy. And of course, Buddy had to take the perfect angle because he was just a little bit, a half step behind. But Edgerrin does that extremely well. He knows how to get to the edge of the defender and get around that defender. He knows what he's there to do. He's there to turn that play inside. He's there to get on that defender's hip so that he's ready to make that play and plug that hole. He knows his assignment. He knows what to do. Is he calling plays? I'm not sure about that. So we're going to need somebody, I don't know if that's going to be Antonio. All that communication, I'm sure all the guys are going to have to communicate to make sure they're calling plays correctly for the defense and where to go, where to be. But, of course, the middle linebacker is going to play a big role in that, or at least one of them, right? So Edgerrin going to be a big guy for us this year, and going to be a tackle machine. He actually does really well in coverage as well. He just got that body type. He's somewhere around the 215, 220-ish. We'll see what he clocks in for fall, but he's got such good speed. He can get back in coverage really well. A lot of crossing routes come through, and he's going to be expected to make sure that he's on those, and he's got the underneath route and or control whenever we're blitzing, those kinds of things, right? So who's going to play in the other spot? We got a few candidates, it seems. But it's probably our lightest category, to be honest. We do have some 4-star guys back there, but we just really haven't seen a lot that says, oh yeah, I know for sure this is going to be the guy. That is. I mean, we're probably going to default here on this next one to probably Andre White. Makes sense. He played last year and played in large part. He wasn't the starter last year, and Hansford was, so he's going to be expected to step in there and play for Hansford. Hansford had a pretty good year. It wasn't a Buddy Johnson year, but it was good, and if we can get something like that from him, I even think we can get something more, but we might be looking at somebody like perhaps, I don't know, I mean, his name just keeps coming up because of that spring game, and I'm not sure if he can work his way up there or how this is going to be, but Terrion Lee was all over the field in the spring game. Go back and watch it again if you haven't, and you're going to see this guy, his name's going to flash up multiple times, not just a couple times, multiple times, and he's a ball hawk. He knows where to be. He likes to be in the mix, and he is in the mix. So he is somebody that I'm thinking, if it's not going to be Andre White, if I were going to be wrong about, let's say I made a prediction that it was going to be Andre White, or even Edgerrin Cooper, and Cooper gets hurt somehow, who's going to be the next person to step up? Russell's been a name that's out there too, but Lee just might have it. He might be the most out of nowhere dark horse player we've ever had to kind of, possibility. We did take Ish Harris last year. I'm not really expecting that to come through. We only run 2 linebackers because we're running a nickel most of the time. So three linebacker formations just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we don't need a lot in this area to be honest, but we do need a solid 2 deep in case anything happens. And we got about 5, 6. There's a few other folks that did come in, and we should be fairly solid. We should be. But it is the position group I worry about the most. I've already taken his name out of my head because I hated that commitment that we were looking for, and I'll the name that shall not be said, I suppose. Harold Perkins. When he looked like he did commit to us, right? And then 3 weeks later he decommits, and then he ends up committing to LSU, and then he ends up burning our hat at his party, and it's like, what's the deal? And this was a 5-star that we were after heavily or on hard, right? Because we wanted and we needed a 5-star linebacker. It's just a place that we've just traditionally not brought in as much talent. It's been a very difficult spot for us. So Santucci's got his work cut out for him. He's done a good job, though. I mean, think about what he's done with Buddy, how he brought along Hansford last year, what Edrin's been doing. Very capable. That I'm not worried about. But it's an area that we need a role player. We need somebody that's going to fill gaps. So that's what this position is going to be required to do. In large part, it's going to be filling gaps, knowing where you have to be, not getting caught up in traffic, not letting that guy, that offensive lineman, get to the second level and get you locked down, like Father Reed did to Anderson, right? It's in the bit in the news right now. You got to check that one out. There's been some controversy there, but we're gonna need somebody that can get off of those blocks and just go be where they need to be. Let the tackles come to you. Don't overplay. We don't want somebody that overplays. We just want somebody that's going to do their job. We want this defense to work as a cohesive unit. So, overall, we might have more questions on the defense than we'd like to, and we definitely do more so than we do on offense. But, and in addition, because we've got a turnover at defensive coordinator with Durkin coming in, I think we all have, just kind of a little anxiety. We're a little anxious about this position and this overall look from this unit. But that might be right now. After fall camp gets worked out, I think we're going to end up seeing something that we may not be quite prepared for. Time will tell, but get ready, because I think you're going to be in for a very unrude awakening when this defense hits. Because when this defense hits, it's going to be hard hitting. It's going to be one for the ages. I feel satisfied about that. So let's run back through this. Let's kind of put out official prediction. Don't hold me to it or whatever. But this is kind of what I think it's probably going to end up playing out, and we'll just go front end to back end, left to right, or whatever. Right. So I think we're going to end up looking probably Fidel Diggs, a left or right edge, Shimar Turner, not Shamar Stewart. We do have a Stewart as well, but Turner. McKinley Jackson, right guard. Toon Meese on the right, left edge, flip-flop them depending on. Edgerrin Cooper, outside linebacker. Andre White, middle linebacker. Okay, nickel, obviously going to be Antonio Johnson. Cornerback, I think what I'm going to go with is Tyreek on one side, Denver on the other side, which is going to put Jalen at the back for safety right next to Damani. That's my pick. I'm gonna stick with that. We will see how that will work out. I am extremely excited to see what happens with that. But buckle up. It's going to be a fun season, and this fall is getting real close. Pool parties coming up as well. Probably likely to see some commitments here in the near future. We are taking our time. It feels like not much is happening, but be patient, because we're in a spot now where we can be patient. We don't want to rush to pick up guys that, we're not 100% sold on. It's going to be a little bit smaller class this year, but get ready for that. So fun times. So what's left before we hit the season? Got a preview coming up for all the games. I'll make my predictions on that, so look for that coming up in the near future. And between now and then, don't forget, like and subscribe, comment, tell me what you think, engage me. I love to talk about this. That's why we're all here. We're all here to talk about something we love, and that's Aggie football. So thanks for joining me. We'll see you here again in the near future. Until then, thanks and gig 'em.